The Department of Justice faces criticism for its involvement in investigations that some argue are driven more by politics than by justice. Is this a case of the DOJ's own strategies backfiring, or merely another episode in the ongoing narrative of politicized law enforcement?
Hello, and welcome to That News Show, where we discuss the latest facts, fakes, and hypocrisy as reported by the legacy media. Let's roll the tape.
MSNBC reports on a scandal involving Ari and Nicole, focusing on alleged abuses of power by Trump that have backfired on the Department of Justice. Tonight, the same media outlets that once defended the intelligence community are now surprised to find these tactics used against them. It's time to question who really holds power in Washington and whose interests are being protected. Is it truly a scandal if those who initiated countless investigations are now under scrutiny, or is it justice finally being served? Let's see what we've got here.
They're talking about Russia-level criminal conduct, which they already cleared. In other words, what you just said, what's the evidentiary standard? Trump AG Bill Barr, who was the most loyal of any of the AGs who served in the first term, as you're reminding everyone, ordered this probe, oversaw it.
It is troubling to see the DOJ, an institution meant to be above politics, repeatedly drawn into these battles. When the DOJ is weaponized in this way, it erodes trust in our institutions and distracts from real issues facing Americans. Both parties have politicized the justice system at times, but the relentless pursuit of these baseless allegations by Democrats and their allies in the media has set a dangerous precedent. The narrative of Russia-level criminal conduct persists in some media and the previous administration, despite numerous investigations, including the exhaustive Mueller probe, which found no evidence of conspiracy or coordination with Russia. Leaks, procedural irregularities, and a lack of new evidence only reinforce the perception that these investigations are driven more by vendettas than by the rule of law. Yet, the cycle of accusations and endless probes continues, often disregarding due process and the reputations of those targeted. The American people deserve better than this endless cycle of investigations with no resolution, no new facts, and no regard for the damage done to public trust. The real threat to our democracy is not a foreign plot, but the willingness of entrenched elites to use government machinery against their political opponents, all while ignoring the standards of evidence and fairness that should define our justice system. Instead of being distracted by global issues or endless foreign entanglements, we should demand accountability and transparency from our government agencies.
What you can't do, and what I don't think the Supreme Court should allow, even if they gave away the store on immunity, is have the highest levers of power in the government to investigate, to arrest, to interrogate, the tailing of James Comey.
Recent Department of Justice investigations into figures like James Comey have sparked debates about whether these actions are driven by justice or political motives. The ongoing scrutiny of Comey and Brennan seems more focused on revisiting past political disputes rather than uncovering new evidence, suggesting a pattern of behavior that includes politicizing federal agencies and protecting allies from accountability. Also, the media's selective outrage, often amplified by left-leaning outlets, tends to overlook the double standards at play. If the highest offices are immune from investigation or prosecution, it undermines public trust and paves the way for further abuses. While they criticize investigations into their political allies as persecution, they remained relatively silent when similar strategies were employed against Republican figures. The Supreme Court's recent rulings on executive immunity are under close observation, not only for their legal ramifications, but also for their potential to encourage future administrations to overstep their powers. There is a real danger in allowing those who control the levers of government, such as investigators, prosecutors, and intelligence officials, to operate without stringent oversight. The real danger lies not in robust oversight, but in a system that allows those in power to act with impunity, protected by legal technicalities and partisan alliances. History has demonstrated that both political parties, when unchecked, may use these powers to target opponents rather than serve the public interest. When the Supreme Court considers broad immunity, particularly for former presidents, it sets a dangerous precedent that could shield officials from accountability even when their actions may be unethical or illegal. Granting sweeping immunity to top government officials risks undermining the checks and balances essential for protecting individual liberty and preventing power abuse. The American people deserve a government that is transparent, accountable, and dedicated to their interests, not one preoccupied with settling scores or protecting elites.
Then there is the larger question over whether this is potentially abuse of power and illicit prosecution, which is the kind of thing that, if substantiated, is, I should note, a potentially impeachable offense for people keeping track of the Constitution's limits here.
MSNBC's coverage of DOJ investigations into former intelligence officials such as Brennan and Comey raises significant concerns about journalistic standards and the implications for our constitutional order. MSNBC's reliance on sources and expert opinions frequently reinforces this lack of balance. A particular area where MSNBC could improve is in its tendency to equate disagreements over intelligence assessments with criminal behavior. When the media fails to hold all sides equally accountable, it empowers those who would manipulate government power for personal or political ends, posing a threat to liberty that go beyond party lines. While it is appropriate for MSNBC to examine any administration's use of the DOJ, their selective focus and lack of introspection weaken their critique's credibility. MSNBC quickly points out procedural irregularities in the absence of new evidence in these investigations, but overlooks the long history of politicized actions by the D. This omission distorts the context and misleads viewers about where the real abuses of power have occurred. Analysts like Andrew Weissman, deeply embedded in the intelligence and law enforcement communities, are presented as neutral experts, even though they defend practices that have faced bipartisan criticism. A more detailed examination shows a pattern of selective outrage and a tendency to promote narratives that align with partisan interests, rather than providing objective analysis. This creates an echo chamber, marginalizing or ignoring dissenting views, particularly those critical of the previous Democratic administration's record on civil liberties and surveillance. This approach leaves viewers with a simplistic good versus evil storyline that does not adequately address the real dangers of unchecked government power. It predominantly features former officials and analysts with apparent partisan biases, seldom giving a platform to credible voices from outside the mainstream left. The core issue is not simply whether one party or another is guilty of overreach, but whether our constitutional safeguards are strong enough to prevent any administration from abusing its power. The network often portrays these investigations as blatant abuses of power. Yet, the network's coverage often blurs this distinction, contributing to public confusion and eroding trust in our institutions. The network makes little effort to explore the broader pattern of elite self-protection widespread in both Democratic and Republican administrations, especially in shielding allies from accountability.
I think they're very dishonest people. I think they're crooked as hell. And maybe they have to pay a price for that.
Criticizing James Comey, calling the former FBI director cowardly.
He's a showboat. He's a grandstander.
As these investigations proceed, it is crucial to demand genuine accountability and resist using federal power to settle political scores. When accusations target high-ranking officials like the former FBI director, the repercussions extend far beyond Washington. Although both parties have contributed to this problem, the pattern of leaks, selective outrage, and lack of accountability from left-leaning media and Democratic leadership is particularly concerning. If investors believe that federal agencies are used as political tools, or that investigations are motivated by personal vendettas rather than objective evidence, they may hesitate to invest or expand operations. OJ are viewed as partisan. Americans may doubt the fairness of everything from tax audits to small business loans. This political turbulence creates uncertainty that affects American families and businesses, eroding trust in law enforcement leadership and undermining confidence in the rule of law, which is essential for a healthy economy. For households, the decline in institutional trust goes beyond the news. From a traditional conservative and somewhat libertarian viewpoint, the misuse of federal agencies indicates a deeper issue, an entrenched elite that prioritizes its interests over those of ordinary Americans. The Department of Justice's decision to investigate figures such as James Comey and John Brennan amid allegations of dishonesty and misconduct raises serious concerns about the stability and predictability of our federal institutions. The broader economic impact is exacerbated as these controversies distract from more urgent issues. Their approach to law enforcement also appeared politicized, eroding public trust and diverting attention from genuine threats to national security and prosperity. The solution lies not in more global entanglements or top-down directives, but in a renewed commitment to transparency, limited government, and the rule of law. This uncertainty can stifle job growth and weaken consumer confidence, particularly when headlines are dominated by leaks and procedural irregularities from agencies expected to remain apolitical. If the FBI and D, instead of concentrating on policies that could lower energy costs, secure the border, or reduce the national debt, Congress and the media are caught in continuous cycles of investigation and counter-investigation. The cost of compliance increases as people fear selective enforcement or politically motivated scrutiny. Can you believe this? For years, politicized investigations have targeted those who challenge the status quo. As we observe the Department of Justice under scrutiny, it's evident that the dynamics have shifted. The pressing question remains, will justice prevail, or will the powerful continue to protect themselves? This debate isn't about taking sides. It's about demanding transparency and accountability from institutions that are meant to serve everyone, not just a privileged few. Leave a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. That's all for now.